Webinar for Dr. Glidden insiders and their guests. Exclusively 135 people now in the room. Central nervous system dysfunction pathology from the conventional MD allopathic perspective, juxtaposed against the sophisticated, holistic, naturopathic understanding of the pathogenesis, presumptive pathogenesis of these illnesses, and what to do to support and promote your body's ability to optimize its structure and function. Now, in the context of a private practice, in a state in which I am licensed to practice naturopathic medicine, I can treat MS, I can treat Parkinson's, and I can treat ALS. In the context of this webinar, it is illegal to treat any of these conditions. This webinar series is not intended to treat disease. Nothing we do here with the Dr. Glidden Insider stuff is intended to treat disease. The intention of this educational series is to give you a different perspective on illnesses, because the only perspective that anybody's had in the not-so-free world for the last 100 years is the perspective brought to the medical marketplace by the MDs. You know, bless their hearts, the MDs are good for surgery when it's necessary, trauma care, and a handful of infectious diseases. For chronic illnesses like ALS, MS, and Parkinson's disease, it is my opinion that your medical doctor is the last person that you want to go to for help with these illnesses, and hopefully tonight's webinar will line that up for you. In any event, the intention of this webinar series is to educate the general public as to the holistic perspective on the pathoneogenesis, the generation, the formation of chronic illnesses, and then to take it a step further, what we recommend based on clinical experience to support and promote the body's ability to have, in this case, a healthy central nervous system, which is not to be confused with a treatment for any of these conditions. If you're suffering with any of these conditions, it's my advice that you secure the services of a licensed holistic health practitioner wherever you can. It's also my advice that you avoid the MDs like the plague for these conditions, because in fact they are the wrong dog for this hunt. Okay? All right. 8:06, 157 people now in the house. Let's push ahead and get into it. Let the learning begin. Now, when I deliver a health webinar, a live health webinar, I do not pay any attention to the chat box. I pay no attention whatsoever to the chat room. I'm 100% focused on the delivery of the information. So feel free, however, to chat amongst yourselves. And please pay attention to the rules of the chat room. There's no soliciting of members for your longevity organization from other longevity organizations. And there's no dissemination of personal contact information whatsoever. Get it? Got it? Good. Let's hit the road and start tonight's webinar, which is on central nervous system dysfunction and what we can do about it from the holistic perspective. So very happy that you found time in your busy lives to be with me this evening. So I always like to start at the beginning. The beginning is never a bad place to start. Because all three of these conditions are intimately related with central nervous system function, and it's important to have a heads up. So, of course, the most important part, arguably, of the central nervous system, right, is the brain. And then coming down from the brain is the spinal cord. The spinal cord goes all the way from the base of your neck into your tailbone, and the spinal cord is protected by your backbones, the vertebrae, the things that your chiropractor adjusts. One of the functions of your backbone is to provide mechanical support, right? It's like the armor that's guarding the nerves that come off of the spinal cord. And most of the nerves that go to every single part of the human body come off of the spinal cord. The spinal cord is an extension of the brain being perhaps arguably the most important part of the human body mind. And it's interesting to understand that as medical science goes down the road, our understanding of exactly how the brain functions changes just about monthly now. But needless to say, there are a number of parts of the brain which are related to different aspects of your life. There's a part of the brain that's relegated to speech. There's a part of the brain that's relegated to hearing. There's a part of the brain that's relegated to imagination and music and art and smelling and science and math and right-sided vision and left-sided vision and analytic thought and creative thought, right? Different parts of the brain have different functions. And so when different parts of the brain are damaged by whatever, a bullet to the head, a virus, a stroke, right? A little blood clot that lodges in a blood vessel in the brain and then stops the blood flow to the areas of the brain immediately around that, so the cells in that part of the brain die, you're going to have different things happen. Maybe you lose your sense of smell. Maybe you lose your ability to remember things in the short term or the long term. Maybe you lose your ability to see with your left eye, whatever, right? Different parts of the brain are related to different physiological functions. And when different parts of the brain are damaged, different things show up in our life. Now, of course, the brain extends into the spinal cord. The spinal cord goes all the way down the back, and all of the nerves that make everything in the body just about work come out of the spinal cord. And it's important that we have kind of a cursory understanding of this anatomy, because this anatomy is intimately related, from our point of view, with the pathology of amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, ALS, multiple sclerosis, and Parkinson's disease, as you will see, hopefully, later on. Now, we've got, millions of nerves in the human body. Some are very, very eeny, weeny, teeny and short. Some are very, very long. But generally speaking, regardless of where the nerve is, whether it's in your tongue or your eye or your brain or your right pinky finger, the general anatomy of the nerve is the same from nerve to nerve, more or less. This is kind of an artist's rendering of a nerve, your generic run-of-the-mill nerve. And the intention and the purpose of the nerve is to transmit electrical signals throughout the body. And the electrical signals are generated by the cell body, and they move down this thing called, they move down the nodes of Ranvier. How about that? How about that for a poetic name? The nodes of Ranvier propagate the electric signal that is moving through the nerve, and when the electrical signal gets all the way to the end of the nerve, it comes into these anatomical structures called synapses. Now, this is an important thing to understand, because the synapse is where most of the action happens in the nerve, at the end, the terminal end of the nerve. And by the way, you can have thousands of nerves daisy-chained together, right? Each interacting with the next, and not all in a straight line, but they can be, spread out like the stars in the sky, especially in the brain. The neural connections that are in the brain are unbelievably complex and sophisticated. But the take-home message here is at the very end of any given nerve, there are synapses, and let's take a bigger look at the synapse. So on the left-hand side, you'll see the synapse of one nerve. And on the right-hand side, a little lower down, you'll see the synapse of another nerve. And you can see there's stuff that's being transferred from synapse to synapse. This stuff is referred to as neurotransmitters. Perhaps you've heard of serotonin. Perhaps you've heard of dopamine, right? These are two very famous neurotransmitters. And the MDs generate drugs which interfere with the release and uptake of neurotransmitters from one nerve to the other. This is one of the major pharmacological areas of inquiry when it comes to dealing with people with central nervous system dysfunction. Remember, the MDs, bless their hearts, are not concerned with what causes the illness, and they're not concerned with how to cure the illness. They're only concerned with how to manage the symptoms, which we're going to talk about later. But this release of neurotransmitters at the terminal end, the synapses of nerves, is a very important thing, especially when we're talking about Parkinson's disease, which we will see a little bit further on. But we don't want to overlook the obvious. Medical doctors, PhDs, and scientists never ask the question. They never ask the simple question: how does the nerve know what to do? How does anything know what to do? How does the little macrophage that's part of your immune system know where to go and to engulf and gobble up a foreign invader? How does it know how to do that? How does the nerve know to release, 15 micrograms of serotonin at this exact moment in time? How does it know how to do that? But where did the serotonin come from anyway? I mean, that's a pretty complex molecule. How did all of this happen? Well, the MDs base their entire methodology and their ideology on something called reductionism. And reductionism is based on the physics of Sir Isaac Newton, and reductionism argues if it can't be measured, it doesn't exist. And since nobody has ever dissected the soul out of a human body, to the MD, to the PhD, and to the scientists, it doesn't exist. To the MD, there is no indwelling spiritual force inside the human body. The body has no wisdom. It has none. The body is a biochemical accident of fiat, of evolutionary happenstance, which happened millions of years ago in some antediluvian primordial swamp where biochemicals came together coincidentally. A lightning bolt from a passing thunderhead shot into the mix, and all of a sudden life began, and then we evolved from there, and it's nonsense. Now, whether you believe in evolution or not is not the point here. The point here is no scientist, no MD takes the time to ask themselves the question, how does the body know what to do? Now, since the MDs are grounded in their belief in reductionism, their point of view is that once you're sick, you're screwed. So you can't cure MS, you can't cure ALS, you can't cure Parkinson's, you can't cure anything. You can't even cure heartburn, for goodness sake. So really, it's not the intention of this profession to look for the cure. The intention of this profession is to try to discover drugs which manage the symptoms of the illness so that at least you can try to eke out some quality of life. Now, every system of medicine in the world, except the MDs, argues that the human body is in fact inhabited by an unmeasurable spiritual force. This is not a religious conversation. It doesn't matter if you're a Jew, if you're a Muslim, if you're a born-again Christian, if you're a Roman Catholic, if you're a Buddhist. Does not matter. If you believe in the existence of a spirit, then you must also therefore believe that the spirit is inhabiting your human body, and every holistic system of medicine in the world believes that it is the presence of your spiritual force, the spiritual force, your spiritual essence inside of your body, which lends to your body wisdom. And it is your spiritual essence which is running the show. Now, the easiest way to kind of conceptualize this is to think about what happens when somebody dies. It's exactly the same biochemistry in the body. 1 second after death as 1 second before death, but after death, the body starts to decompose and decay. Why is that? Well, because Elvis has left the building, that's why. Your spirit, your soul is gone. Who knows where it goes? Some people think they know where it goes. But that's not the point. The point is it's gone. And when it's gone, the body starts to fall apart. So therefore, by logical extrapolation, we assume that it is the presence of your spiritual force inside your living body, which runs everything. And this is the fundamental concept of any type of holistic medicine. Your body knows how to fix itself. Your body wants to fix itself. Your body is attempting to optimize its structure and function every second of every day. That's its task. And it is the job of the holistic physician to support your body's ability to get the job done, to take care of itself, and to fix itself. Now, having said that, from the proper perspective, let's take a look at the MD perspective on all of this and see if it gives us a little bit more understanding, okay? So, here's what the MDs believe about multiple sclerosis. Well, here are some fun facts to know and tell about multiple sclerosis. 400,000 cases in the U.S., approximately 2.5 million cases in the world. 200 new cases are diagnosed in the United States each week. The further you go away from the equator, the more prevalent, more or less, multiple sclerosis becomes. More or less, which makes holistic physicians think that, well, sunlight perhaps has something to do with this. And of course, we all know that sunlight helps the body to make endogenous vitamin D like David. So perhaps there's a relationship between vitamin D and multiple sclerosis. You would think that sophisticated, smart humanitarian physicians would have researched this and taken up that cause. But as of December 4th, 2014, there has been very little effective research done in this area. You can get MS at any age. Most people, however, are diagnosed between the ages of 20 and 40 years of age. Now, this is what multiple sclerosis looks like under the microscope. On the top here, we've got the healthy nerve, right? And we explained this before. You've got the axon of the nerve and the myelin sheath, which insulates the electrical signal as it travels down the root of the nerve to the synapses and where neurotransmitters are released. Well, the myelin sheath that covers the outside of the axon of the nerve, where the electrical potential travels, is like the insulation that's around a wire. And I don't know if you've ever had any experience with, speakers, speaker wire, and somebody, the rubber insulation has become chafed off and you can see a little bit of the copper wire in there. Well, when that happens, you get all kinds of static in the headphones, right? When an electrical wire loses its insulation, the transmission of the electrical signal is less than perfect. Well, it's the same thing in the body. When the myelin sheath, which is the insulation on the outside of the axon of the nerve, becomes degraded, all kinds of funky electrical things happen, or more to the point, they don't happen. So the body is trying to generate a nerve signal, but the nerve signal is interrupted in its path to its destination, wherever that destination may be. And this process is called demyelination. Now, the MDs know that demyelination happens in multiple sclerosis, but they are 100% clueless as to what causes it. Now, if you look in any medical reference, and it's important that, again, that we have the proper perspective, because you can miss stuff that's right in front of your face. You'll just gloss over it, and you'll miss a very important point. Everything that you read about multiple sclerosis will say the current conventional thought believes that multiple sclerosis is an autoimmune disease where the body attacks its own nerve sheath. They haven't proven it. It's a theory. It's a working theory. Nobody has proved that it's an autoimmune illness, and if you've seen my lecture on autoimmune illnesses, you know what a red herring that is from my point of view, what a wild goose chase that is from my point of view. And this is a very noteworthy thing here, because when the MDs are up against a situation which is beyond their comprehension, they blame it on one of two things: genetics or autoimmunity. And whenever an MD says, oh, it's genetic, everybody prostrates to their indefatigable intelligence. Oh, it's an autoimmune disease. Thank you very much, doctor. You're so smart. You're so very wise. And then the patient seems a little, intellectually stymied. Oh, it's an autoimmune disease. My doctor must know what they're talking about. I'm telling you, they do not. Number one, it's presumptive. Number two, it's presumptive. Number three, it's presumptive. Nobody has ever proved it. But you need to understand this. This is important to understand because everybody's up against this. And this is bad all around the world. In the United States, the leading cause of death is MD-directed medical treatments. The leading cause of bankruptcy is MD-directed medical treatments. And while we've let the MDs drive the bus of medicine, our health is going to hell in a handbasket. Incidence of MS is accelerating. Incidence of amyotrophic lateral sclerosis is accelerating. Parkinson's accelerating with not a cure in sight. It's a problem. This is what happens when those nerve transmissions become funkified because the insulation around the outside of the nerve is going away. Fatigue, vision problems, numbness and tingling, muscle weakness, muscle spasms, problems with balance, speech problems, can't remember things, bladder problems, bowel problems. That's not good. All kinds of things can happen because, remember, multiple sclerosis is not segregated to certain parts of the anatomy. It can happen to any nerve anywhere in the body, and nobody knows why. This, of course, after, well, I'm going to tell you how much money we spend on research, but it's kind of good if you're in the business of treating multiple sclerosis because it's a great big money generator for the pharmacy. It's a great big money generator for the hospital. It's a great big money generator for the doctor. Anywhere between $8,000 and $54,000 per patient per year. MS ranks only second to congestive heart failure in terms of costliness of treatment. Now, the conspiracy theorist inside of me wants to say, well, right, it's better not to cure it from a financial perspective, but I don't believe that the MDs are that heartless. I believe that they are locked into their reductionistic point of view, and it's their reductionistic point of view which is failing them, and they will never give that up. Going to an MD, expecting them to come up with a cure for multiple sclerosis is like going to a communist and expecting them to give you advice about voting. It's not going to happen. Not because they're bad people, but because they can't give up their point of view, and their point of view is incorrect. $610 million in research since 2010. That's just in the last 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014. It's in the last 4 years. If you count 2010, 5 years. $610 million. You know how much money that is? That's a chunk of change, Charlie. And you're telling, and that's just in the last 4 years. And after all of this money is spent, we're no closer to understanding what causes the myelin to go away and how to cure it. No closer whatsoever. And the therapeutics are so ineffective that it costs the poor patient between $8 and $55 grand a year. And I'm the quack, right? As God is my witness, ladies and gentlemen, the medical system in the United States, in Canada, in the European Union, in Australia, in New Zealand does not need to be modified, tweaked, managed, or massaged. It needs to be abandoned because it doesn't work. Look, I have direct evidence. It doesn't work. Now, I love Novocaine. I love morphine. I love the sterile technique and the mattress suture because those things work. This is not an anti-pharmaceutical rant. This is an anti-juvenile medical approach rant. These people should be ashamed of themselves for such a remarkable expenditure of money. We've got bumpkiss. Bumpkiss. You want to go to an interesting website for statistics? Healthline.com, but you have to read between the lines. Amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, by the way, ALS is an acronym. Amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. Oh, isn't that a fancy schmancy doctor term? Well, it is. And remember, MDs name things like this in order to keep you feeling intellectually inferior. Worldwide, it's 2 per 100,000 people have amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. Now, what amyotrophic lateral sclerosis translates to in English is no muscle nourishment. No muscle nourishment. I'm going to tell you why that's significant in a minute. Originally, this was called Lou Gehrig's disease because he was one of the first people in the modern age to come up with this clinical set of symptoms. And then more and more people started showing up with it. And because he was kind of one of the first, now they're synonymously calling amyotrophic lateral sclerosis Lou Gehrig's disease. Perhaps the most famous person who's had Lou Gehrig's disease is Stephen Hawking. Stephen Hawking's all in the news right now because of the movie that they made about his life. Stephen Hawking is the reductionist's reductionist. The reductionist's reductionist. And, you know, everybody's okay that we haven't figured out how to fix this, even though we're spending millions of dollars on it. It's a travesty. And nobody is talking about it because nobody wants to state the obvious. And the obvious is that the MDs are the wrong dog for this hunt. The MDs are ill-suited to find a cure for any chronic disease, period. Their therapeutics should be abandoned. But they own the medical marketplace. It's a monopoly. So they're not going to let anybody else play. And it's a problem. So anyway, let's take a look at how this illness shows up, and you can kind of get a sense for understanding why it's called amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. Remember, that's no muscle nourishment, right? Okay, so we got a muscle, right? You got your bicep right there. Hey, does that look swollen to anybody? Does that look swollen to anybody? What do you think? So you've got your muscle, and the muscle anywhere in your body is innervated by nerves. And remember those little synapses at the end of the nerve? Well, the synapses interact with the muscle, and sometimes it's a a neurotransmitter that they release, and sometimes it's an electrical charge that they release, whatever, right? So the interfacing of the end of the nerve with the muscle keeps the muscle healthy and active and alive. And of course, the nerves that go to all of your muscles originate in the spinal cord. Remember the spinal cord, right? Spinal cord starts in the back of the nape of the neck. It's an extension of the brain, goes all the way down your back to your tailbone, protected by the backbone. And here's a cross-section of 3 pieces of your backbone and the nerves that come out, right? So we've got the bones, and we've got that thing that looks like a pillow there is the intervertebral disc, and I did a whole webinar about that, which explains, what's going on there. And then the blue, green, and the yellow stuff in this drawing is the spinal cord and the nerves that come off of the spinal cord going to your heart, your lungs, your bladder, your kidney, your muscles. Everything in the body from the neck down is innervated by these nerves. And now if we look straight down on a cross-section of your backbone, up top is the intervertebral disc, looks like a big pillow. And then the blue stuff is the nerves that are coming off of the spinal cord, which in this picture is green and yellow. The nerves that come off of one side of the spinal cord carry sensory information, pain, smell, sight, right? Sensory information. And the nerves that come off of the other side of the spinal cord go for motor function, right? The body separates the nerves into 2. There's sensory function and there's motor function. And they're separated anatomically on both sides. Now, the spinal cord itself, which in this cross-section is the green and the yellow stuff in the middle, has different parts to it. And, scientists name everything, right? So this part of the spinal cord is called the lateral column of the spinal cord. And it's the nerves that come off of the lateral column of the spinal cord, the nerves which are associated with motor function, which come off of the lateral column of the spinal cord, are the nerves that are associated with amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. Get it? That's where the lateral came into the word. It's just an anatomical reference, right? It's an anatomical reference. But the take-home message here is that when somebody has amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, the nerves' impulses are being interrupted, and nobody knows why. Nobody knows why. Clueless. What happens when these nerves become pathologically afflicted, you get muscle wasting because there's no more nerve signal going to the muscle, so the muscle that it's going to kind of withers up and shrivels up. So the muscle stops working. If it stops working, it gets smaller, right? You work a muscle out, it gets bigger. You don't work a muscle out, it gets smaller. And in the case of ALS, it gets really small. Total paralysis, partial paralysis, ultimately is the result, and usually people that are afflicted with ALS die because the muscles that make their lungs open and close don't work anymore. So they can't breathe unless they're on heart and lung machine. That's a problem. It's a problem. I'll tell you what's a bigger problem. $216 million in the last 5 years, and we've got squat. Nothing. We're no closer to a cure for ALS than we were before the ridiculous Ice Bucket Challenge, which in and of itself raised $115 million, which we gave to the medical profession under whose watch ALS started spreading like wildfire. Wasn't while the chiropractors were in charge of medicine. Wasn't why the naturopaths were in charge of medicine. Wasn't while the homeopaths or the Ayurvedic practitioners or the acupuncturists or the traditional Chinese medical doctors were in charge of medicine. It's while the MDs have been in charge of medicine that all these illnesses have skyrocketed. And so we're going to give them money to come up with a cure. You've got to be kidding me. But that's the way it is in the upside down, inside out, topsy-turvy world of modern medicine. I mean, the MDs, they're like a football team that doesn't have a passing game. They're always going to lose. Yeah, maybe once in a while they'll win. So let's give that team lots and lots of money to get stronger linebackers, to get stronger, people in the... Still no passing game. They're going to lose. Again, you're welcome to your own opinion, but not your own set of facts. You give the naturopaths $115 million, we'll come up with a cure for amyotrophic lateral sclerosis in 4 years. Because we have the proper perspective about it. Parkinson's disease. Michael J. Fox, perhaps the most famous person suffering from Parkinson's disease, one of the national spokesmen for Parkinson's disease, has a whole foundation dedicated to finding a cure for Parkinson's disease, but they aren't doing bump kiss with alternative medicine. And you know how much I hate the term alternative medicine. I don't even know why I just said that. They're not doing anything with holistic medicine. So remember, the central nervous system, central headquarters is the brain, right? And there are different parts of the brain that do different things. And off of the brain comes the spinal cord, and it goes all the way down your back, and all the nerves come off of that. Well, there's a very specific part of the brain that people with Parkinson's have trouble with, right? With multiple sclerosis, it can be any nerve anywhere in the body. With ALS, it's only the nerves that come off of the lateral column of the motor nerves in the spinal cord. Nowhere else. It's only those nerves. It can be nerves way up here. It can be nerves way down here, but they all come off of the lateral column, the motor column of the spinal cord. Well, with Parkinson's disease, there's a part of the brain right there. Right there. It's called the substantia nigra, which is fancy schmancy doctor talk for the dark part of the brain. And that's a true story. Yeah, it looks pretty dark to me. What are we going to call it? Wait a minute. I know what we'll call it. We'll call it the substantia nigra, which is Latin for the dark part. You got to be kidding me. But anyway, the substantia nigra in the brain manufactures the neurotransmitter dopamine. Dopamine. Now remember, we've got the synapses at the end of nerves, and one of the things the synapses do is they release neurotransmitters, one of which is dopamine. Well, when there ain't no dopamine to release, because the substantia nigra is screwed up, you get Parkinson's disease. Not enough dopamine, tremors, muscle incoordination, depression, swallowing difficulty, sleep difficulty, urination difficulty, blood pressure gets funky, sexual dysfunction, fatigue, and pain. It's not fun. It's not pretty. And because the MDs can't cure it, well, what have they done? They've developed expensive drugs to suppress the symptoms. And this passes for the best medical strategy in the world, the most effective, most scientific, most intellectual. It's nonsense. But there it is. Health management, disease management, brought to you by Bus Driver MD. Now, from the holistic point of view, this isn't rocket science. From the holistic point of view, we are of the opinion that multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, and amyotrophic lateral sclerosis all are rooted to the same things. They're the same illness manifesting in different parts of the central nervous system, right? The substantia nigra, the lateral axons of the spinal cord, lateral column of the spinal cord. Or the myelin of nerves anywhere in the body. Different anatomical locations, presumptively the same stuff going on. Lack of essential nutrients, lack of cholesterol, oxidative damage, and consistent consumption of inflammatory foods, and exposure to crap in the environment, crap in the air, crap in the water, crap in the food, toxins, bad stuff. The holistic community, the naturopathic community, is of the belief that it is this stuff which is directly related to a funky substantia nigra, funky myelin, and funky lateral columns in the spinal cord. We believe that this is what's at play. Now, you give my profession $600 million, we'll prove this. All we have now is clinical experience and intelligence, understanding of the pathophysiology of the body, and observation of patients over time. Now, my colleagues, I have colleagues that have had patients who no longer have amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. I have seen people with a definitive diagnosis of ALS and they no longer have ALS. I have seen people who had a definitive diagnosis of multiple sclerosis and no longer do they have multiple sclerosis. I've also seen people who have improved 10%, 20%, 30%, 40%. There's no dyed-in-the-wool solution here because remember, we are in fact not treating disease. And everybody's body is different. Our recommendation, give the body essential nutrients, eat full-fat foods that are full of healthy fats, because your central nervous system is made from healthy fats. Eliminate oxidative stress to the human body and stop eating food that's gumming up the works. And every once in a while, once or twice a year, get on board with the detoxification program to clean your body out. Now, in the interest of time, I have left the detoxification piece out of this lecture because I did an entire hour-long lecture a few months ago on the detoxification process. So if you are interested in finding out how to properly detoxify your body, reference the archived webinar that I've already done on how to do that. It's not a complicated thing, but it's nothing I can do justice with in 2 minutes, okay? So the detoxification piece of this puzzle is found in a separate webinar, which you are encouraged wholeheartedly to observe. Now, for the newcomers amongst us, there are 90 nutrients which are absolutely 100% essential for the function of nerves and everything else in the body, and here's the rundown. 60 minerals, 16 vitamins, 12 amino acids, 2 essential fatty acids. This is collectively referred to as the 90 for life. 90 for life. If you stick around longevity long enough, you'll see this slogan everywhere, and this is what it refers to. 60 minerals, 16 vitamins, 12 amino acids, and 2 essential fatty acids. These are the basic building blocks that your body needs in order to optimize its structure and function. But these nutrients are not present in the food. They are not present in the food supply, so it is impossible for you, me, or the man in the moon to get all of the nutrients our bodies need just from eating from the 4 food groups or the 5 food groups or the 10 food groups, depending whether or not you're a lacto, ovo, novo from Provo or just a regular person. You cannot get the nutrition that your body needs to optimize its structure and function from eating food. It is impossible. If this tank represents your body's nutrient needs, it needs to be topped off every day with the 90 essential nutrients. It needs to be topped off every day with the 90 essential nutrients. And unless you are actively supplementing your diet with vitamins, minerals, amino acids, and essential fatty acids, unless you are doing that, it's only a matter of time until something breaks, because unless you're supplementing, your tank is approximately less than half full, because you can get maybe 40, maybe if you're lucky 50%, maybe closer to 30%. Between 30 and 40% of your body's nutrients needs met just from eating and drinking. That's it. But then you experience the stress of life. The stress of life whittles away at your reserves. Now you're running on nutrient fumes and something breaks. So your nerves start to get funky. Your bones start to get funky. Your heart starts to get funky. Your liver starts to get funky. Your immune system starts to get funky. You go to an MD who has no training, no experience, no respect, and no appreciation for medical nutrition, and they tell you it's genetic. And then they throw a drug at it, the intention of which isn't to fix it, but just to manage the problems at a profit for the doctor. Oh, thank you, doctor, very much. You're such an awesome human being. I am wonderstruck by your intellectual superiority. So, fill your nutritional tank up. Number 1. Number 2, eliminate these foods. Don't even look at these foods. And I've done an entire webinar which talks about all of these foods and why. You can also find that in my archives. There's a reason why we prohibit these foods. Wheat, barley, rye, and oats, fried food, oil in a bottle, well-done red meat, meat with nitrates added, the skins of baked potatoes, yams, and sweet potatoes, and any carbonated beverage with a meal. If you eat these things, it's only a matter of time until something in your body breaks, because these will hurt you. So, you want to optimize central nervous system function? Stop eating food that's gumming up the works. Watch the other webinar that I put together, which explains why these 10 bad foods are in fact bad. Even Harvard University agrees with us on this. For Parkinson's disease, Harvard University recommends a diet that's 80% fat. 80% fat. What the heck? Eggs. The easiest, simplest source of cholesterol, arguably, and the protein that all other proteins are compared to, the lowly chicken egg. Dr. Wallach recommends 12 eggs a day if you're struggling with central nervous system dysfunction. Now, I don't know. Maybe you can eat 12 eggs a day. Maybe you can't. Maybe that's a struggle. There are companies which produce cholesterol in a pill. You can get cholesterol in a pill, but you have to get that through a licensed holistic practitioner, a chiropractor, a naturopath, or somebody who's licensed to practice medicine. Cholesterol in a pill, go figure. Now, if you can't get that, eat 12 eggs a day. If you can't eat 12, eat 10. If you can't eat 10, eat 8. If you can't eat 8, eat 6, and so forth and so on. Healthy fats, full-fat yogurt, full-fat milk with the cream on top. If you can get it unpasteurized, even better. Cheese. Butter. What? I can't believe it's not butter. I can't believe it's butter. I can't believe you just said eat butter. I know. Eat butter. It's good for you. It's healthy fat, especially if you're suffering with a central nervous system dysfunction. And don't ask me how much, because nobody knows. I will tell you that there's no relationship between cholesterol and heart disease. You do not have to worry about that. And if you want more information about that, read my book. or watch the webinar that I did on heart disease. Go crazy for cholesterol and healthy fats. Again, Harvard University recommends a diet that's 80% healthy fats if you're suffering with Parkinson's disease. Now, here's an interesting thing to talk about. Most people have been avoiding fat because the MDs who have no training in medical nutrition told you to stop eating fat. Everybody believed them, so everybody stopped eating fat, and look what's happened to us. Obesity has skyrocketed. MS is getting worse. Parkinson's getting worse. ALS getting worse. So once you get a clue and you see the light and you start to actually eat more fat, it's possible that for the first month or 2 or 3, your digestive system will need a little more support to help handle that load because it's just not used to it. So we help the digestive system digest fats in excess of what you've been doing by using the ultimate enzymes. We use the ultimate enzymes at the beginning of a meal. 1 capsule, 2 capsules, 3 capsules before a meal at the beginning of a meal, or 5 or 10 minutes before a meal, will virtually guarantee that your digestive tract is able to digest, uptake the healthy fats that we encourage people to eat. So digestive enzymes, the longevity product called Ultimate Enzymes. Get a couple bottles a month and fool around with it. You can dose that on your own individually. You can't take too much of that. If you take too much of that supplement, you experience a burning sensation in this area within half an hour after eating. If that happens, you've taken too much, so just back off a little bit. Mess around with the dosage until you kind of hit your stride. Now, I did an entire webinar again on oxidative stress, but it's worthwhile pointing out a few of the salient details here, right? If you want to know more about this subject, which you should, watch the webinar that I did, and I believe it's called Where's the Fire? It's in the archives. Oxidative damage makes iron turn to rust. It makes fruit go bad. It makes vegetables go bad. It makes mountains turn to dust. It is associated with destruction across the board on planet Earth, whether it is inanimate things or animate things like tissue inside the human body. Holistic physicians are of the opinion that oxidative damage is directly, not indirectly, but directly related to all chronic diseases, all of them, including the neurological trifecta of terror, MS, Parkinson's, and ALS. We believe that oxidative damage is one of the main players here, that it is oxidative damage which is hurting the myelin. It's oxidative damage which is hurting the substantia nigra. It is oxidative damage which is hurting the lateral column of the spinal cord. This is what we believe. It hasn't been proven, but it sounds good to me and it makes a lot of sense. And the people that I know who have in fact recovered from chronic neurological diseases focus on this and fix it. You want to know how to do that? Well, watch the webinar that I did. But I'll give you a couple of heads up pointers right now. One of the main sources of oxidative damage to the human body is oil in a bottle and anything that's fried. And anything that's fried is 100 times worse than oil in a bottle. So we advocate 100% abstinence from any oil that's in any bottle, and yes, that includes coconut oil. Zero tolerance for oil because it delivers free radicals to the body which cause oxidative damage. Now, there are omega-3 and omega-6 essential oils that the body needs, and when you get them from longevity, they're in a little gelatin capsule where all the air has been removed, so they don't oxidize. So this is why we recommend in that 10 bad food list, stay the heck away from any oil in a bottle and don't even be downwind of fried food because they are gigantic free radical donors. Now when it's just a two-step process dealing with oxidative damage. You have to stop eating food that's filled with free radicals which cause oxidative damage. You also need to increase your intake of stuff that has antioxidants in it. Antioxidants, that's how they got their name. Antioxidants are measured by something called an ORAC score. The recommendation is 100,000 ORAC points per day. If you are trying to optimize the structure and function of an organ in the body, which presumptively is linked to oxidative damage, then it would be prudent for you to eat or consume or drink or get into the body somehow antioxidants in excess of 100,000 ORAC units a day. 100,000 ORAC points of antioxidants a day is a very, very good goal to strive for. Now, let's put it together, wrap it up. In order to optimize the structure and function of your central nervous system, in addition to eliminating the 10 bad foods, eating a diet high in cholesterol and healthy fats, getting on board with a detoxification program, and consuming antioxidants in excess of 100,000 ORAC points a day, you need these nutrients. Remember the 90 essential nutrients? Well, I'm going to tell you, in my opinion, the best way to get the 90 essential nutrients into your body. And I've been doing this for 26 years now. I'm intimately involved with the nutraceutical industry in the United States. I have access and clinical experience with hundreds of nutritional supplement companies. And I'm such a cheerleader for longevity because I've seen it produce more consistent results than anything I've ever seen. And I've seen a lot. So to secure the 90 essential nutrients, the recommendation is one Healthy Brain and Heart Pack 2.0 per 100 pounds of body weight per month. Per 100 pounds of body weight per month, one bottle of Immortalium. Per 100 pounds of body weight per month. As much triple treat chocolate as you can afford. 4 boxes a month, 5 boxes a month. Plant-derived minerals. 1 bottle of plant-derived minerals per 100 pounds of body weight per month. Now let's look at the ORAC value. Oh, and the ultimate enzymes. Remember, because we're eating lots of fat, right? And let's look at the ORAC value here. 2 scoops of the Beyond Tangy Tangerine, which is in the Healthy Brain and Heart Pack. If you get 1 canister a month, if you get 1 Healthy Start Pack a month, because you're 100 pounds or less, you'll be getting 8,000 ORAC of antioxidants a day from 2 scoops of Beyond Tangy Tangerine. If you're 200 pounds, you're getting 2 of these, you'll get 16,000 ORAC per day automatically just from already taking this. 1 bottle of the Immortalium delivers 10,500 ORAC per 4 tablets, and 1 bottle equals 4 tablets a day. So if you get 1 bottle a month, you're getting an additional 10,500 ORAC points per month. And last but not least, the triple treat chocolate, there's 17,000 ORAC per piece. Now, there's lots of ways to get antioxidants into your body, which I talked about in my webinar on antioxidants. You don't just have to lean on nutritional supplements, right? Dark-skinned fruit, red wine, green tea, cinnamon, curry powder, walnuts. There's a lot of ways to skin that cat. But these are just, I put these up here because it's my opinion that you need the Healthy Brain and Heart Pack, the Immortalium, the enzymes, the minerals, and the triple treat chocolate every day and going down the hatch if you are attempting to optimize nerve function in the body. And just coincidentally, this is how much ORAC you get from doing that. So do the math, see how much it is. and then make up the difference however is easiest for you to do it. Buy more chocolate, drink more green tea, drink more red wine, whatever. Okay? Okay, so this is the long and the short of it. Remember, we don't treat disease here in the context of these webinars, but what do? We believe that the human body knows how to fix itself, the human body wants to fix itself, and the human body is attempting to fix itself all of the time. So we stop eating food that's gumming up the works. We eat food that supports the body. Oh, by the way, I might have left this out, but 75% of your central nervous system is made from cholesterol. That's what it's made from. So that's why we recommend eating a diet high in cholesterol. I mean, if you had a bone problem, if you broke your bone, I'd recommend you take a lot of calcium into your body because that's what your bone's made from. Well, if you have a problem with your nerves, I recommend you eat a lot of cholesterol because that's what the nerves are made from. And Harvard University agrees with me. So we stop eating the 10 bad foods. We eat food that's high in cholesterol and high in fat to feed the central nervous system. We increase our consumption of antioxidants. We detoxify the body appropriately. And every single flippin' day, like your life depended on it, because guess what it does? We take the 90 essential nutrients and the appropriate add-ons. Keep your fingers crossed. Remember, we look for 90 days, a 90-day discipline with the diet and everything else, inside of which we look to see a positive, noticeable, measurable change somewhere in your body-mind, in 90 days. And because everything's connected, maybe your neurological function hasn't gotten noticeably better in 90 days. Maybe it has. But something will. Sleep, mood, energy, appetite, weight, anxiety, blood pressure, something will improve, and it'll be noticeable, not mediocre. When you get a noticeable positive change with this holistic therapeutic, you maintain the discipline and stay the course because the body heals itself